Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of this 3-part series of From Pain to Purpose. My name is Astra, a certified Reiki healer, and we are here today with Char Richardson, self-love and confidence coach. Today, we are talking about quieting our inner critic. Now, yesterday we shared our personal stories from trauma to triumph with all of you. And today we're going to share a little bit more and go into how to quiet that inner critic. What Char and I did in our personal lives that helped us move forward in our purpose. So if you're struggling with people pleasing, self doubt, or perfectionism, this conversation is for you. We are going to break down how to release the need for external validation, to quiet that inner critic, and to build true confidence. So this is perfect for all of us recovering perfectionists and self-doubters and those recovering from imposter syndrome. So Char, thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I love our chats. I'll
I
find
do.
out.
Yeah. I love them too. I do. So yesterday we talked about our personal upbringings and the influence that it had on our self-confidence, our self-love, and our view of healing and wellness. Today we are discussing the tools that we learned about and put into practice to silence all of that. Now you also have a worksheet for everyone that's watching tonight. So we're definitely looking forward to hearing about that. So just to quickly define imposter syndrome very briefly, it's that, that believing that your success is not deserved or has not been genuinely achieved by your natural skills and expertise. So when we're talking about this level of self-doubt, we're also going to touch on perfectionism. So Shar, for you, what was a key moment where you experienced imposter syndrome, and how did that relate to perfectionism for you?
Oh, like every
Mhm.
day, all the time, right? I would also encourage viewers to check out. There are five types, right, of different imposter syndrome, like aspects of it. So, like, it just for me, it just explains where it helps you articulate, and then you see like where you land. So for me, it's perfectionism, and I think the superhero or superhuman one, where you try to do it all. And so a big key moment that I want to highlight for everyone's imposter syndrome for 5 years before I started my coaching and consulting business. It was like, oh, I need to get this certification before I can become a coach. I got to do this. I got to set this up. I got to have a website. You don't have to, by the way. So it's like all these things I thought I wanted to do or needed to do or should do. To become a coach, and like, oh, who am I to be a coach? Who's going to pay me? So that self-doubt also bled into the imposter syndrome of like everything has to be perfect, whatever. There's no perfect, whatever that might mean, but that's subjective.
Mhm.
Before I can do my coaching, so that's it's normal, it's natural, and everyone listening, hope this resonates and helps you. That I struggled with it for 5 years before I started my business, and now I'm so glad I did. And yes, there are moments where I'm like, oh, I wish I did this earlier. But you know what? It happens all in divine timing, and it's meant to be. But that's a key moment for me when I realized, and someone had said to me, and this is what stood out for me years ago, a coach said, the longer you wait, every day you wait to start your coaching is another day someone you really want to help is going to have to suffer and struggle alone.
Oh,
I said,
yeah.
oh, then like I'm getting chills, just like that hit. I was like, I don't
Mhm.
want someone else to have to struggle longer than they don't have to. And so I was like, okay, I got to do this. Still took a little while, but I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I got to do this, right? So that really hit, right? And yes, there's no perfect. You're always waiting, and I think we'll get into other. We have so many tips, I'm sure, but yeah, one thing is like I just mentioned, and it reminded me when I say should. When you say should to yourself, that and
Mm.
now I literally pause, write down, or like just think about what I just said to myself or out loud. Should stop shoulding all over ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because when we
Right?
should, usually, often it's an external factor that's influencing that thought, that decision, you know. But
Yeah.
instead, it's not truly you. So dig deep. Like, is this something I really want to do? Is this something aligned? Instead of saying, I should work out. I get to work out this morning. The kids are out. I can work out. That's not usually the case. But right, when you say should versus I
Yeah.
get to do something, you're excited to do something, I think that's already a key indicator. What has been like, I mean, it happens every day, the imposter syndrome and perfectionism, but what's been a key moment for you, Astro?
Oh gosh. I feel like for you there are lots of, key moments, just how you're explaining. For me, I can take it a little bit further back into my childhood where, and it took me years to get this. This wasn't something that I realized or recognized that was part of my imposter syndrome until later in life. But as a child, I was really introverted and quiet and to myself. And again, raised with that foundation of like fear and anger, like just stay on the track and do what you're supposed to do. So I don't really feel like I had a chance to become who I naturally was. And there was another key moment where, as I was growing up, because I'm the youngest of four, and as I was growing up, I always had this feeling of like financially being a burden. And as I, again, now in my 40s and kind of learning about myself even more and thinking about that specific financial burden piece of my life and what it actually meant, is that it just felt like I wasn't worthy of having. And there was like a few family members that that made me feel that way, but it's just that not feeling worthy of receiving, and that turned into not feeling worthy of receiving success, and success how I define it. And so that was my, I think that was a key moment for me as I was growing up, that specific feeling. And as I got older, it took years. And I think we talked about this. It's not an overnight process to go through all of that pain that you're feeling or the trauma that you're holding. But as I got older, it's just, that's when I really truly recognized that, okay, hey, there's something deeper within. There's something that about this that I have to do a deep dive into. I'm going to do a deep dive into so I can figure this out, because that was a real key moment in the imposter syndrome piece for me, because I really felt like moving forward as I was successful and as I was doing all of these things, that it wasn't good enough and that it wasn't real, that it wasn't really success. So for me, that was my experience with that. And when it comes to perfectionism, gosh, when you feel like you're made to be a burden, you try to make sure that you're doing all the right things so that you can show others that you're not a burden, right? So for me, that was how perfectionism played into it all. It was, okay, make sure that I get good grades, make sure I wash all the dishes properly, make sure I do all the things that I'm told to do, and not told to do, just so that I am perceived as this perfect child, right? Um, yeah, that was therapy right there.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's like so much more we can. It's that attachment, right? The attachment
Yeah.
of you're associating your worth to something, right?
Yes.
And I think I'm the opposite. Where I mean, I feel like I was told indirectly that I was burdened too, and I'm trying to be so mindful of that with our kids. So like we want to
Yes.
teach them the value of money, but not make them feel like they're a burden. But I feel like the opposite was like I attach my worth with I have to make a lot of money
Mhm.
to make up for like all that my parents has
Mhm.
invested in us. I didn't know you were the youngest before. I think I'm the youngest of three.
Yeah.
But the attachment of our worth to something, and then when you mentioned success, that's another huge one about perfectionism and imposter syndrome. It's like, what is our definition of success, and what is our definition of failure, truly, and what is we think has been narrated for us or prescribed to us.
Exactly.
Because right, like I think especially people of color, women of color, and if you're children of immigrants, it's a whole other layer, right?
Yeah.
Success is like money, have house, have this. Whilst that is all nice to have, and some are necessities, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, what does that mean? What does rich and wealthy mean, right? Because like for me, it's like having more freedom of time and
Mhm.
energy, and having financial needs that were comfortable, right? But some people want a yacht or want like I don't know other things, right? So what is that success, right? And our parents prescribe it but don't really tell us. It's like, oh, go be a lawyer or doctor, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not for me. Like I would hate doing that, right? So yeah, that drives too when you think of when you define success and failure for yourself.
Yeah.
What does that look like compared to what you have made to believe all your life?
And
Thank
that's
you
and
for sharing.
that's yeah, and that's key what you said, describe define it for yourself, right? Whereas it was, defined for us when we were growing
And we
up.
don't even know it because we're just like programmed and wired and we just keep going, like get good grades, get a good
Yeah,
job, right?
yeah, yeah. And you touched on another important piece, right? For us as parents, as mothers, how we want to make sure that our children know that they have that success within themselves, that they have that purpose and drive within themselves, and not to take our trauma and make that the lesson for them, make that
Yeah.
their lesson, right? Because they're going to have their own lessons that they're going through. But that's just an important piece for me. I'm sure for you too. Like you said, it's just making sure that it stops here.
Yeah, and
And
it's so important.
yeah, and allow our children to have their own lessons, because we all come in with our own lessons, whether we like it or not. They're our own, and so it doesn't help another person when we project our fears onto them. We could teach, definitely, um, but it's one of those things where I express to my kids, like, it's not about being perfect at all. It's not about being perfect. It's about being respectable. Yes, it's about being understanding your likes, your dislikes, but it's not about being perfect, because that will just create a whole other issue of self love
Yeah,
and confidence within them.
yeah. To have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, right? And have the confidence just keep trying, keep going, keep learning,
Yeah.
and then as parents to have that create that safety for them to come to us when or kids or just like friends and family, right? To come to us, have that safety so they can come to us and ask for help and share that in. But it's so important for us, and I think that's why you and I do our work, yes, to help individuals, but
Yeah.
ultimately because with that foundation of self-love and self-awareness and consciousness, then people can then project and show up better in the world, right? And for their kids or for their loved ones and just strangers too, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's why we do what we do, right? And people need to have that awareness and consciousness to be able to show up for others like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a ripple effect, right?
Yeah,
What you're feeling
absolutely.
within flows out, and it's like you said, it can affect everything around you and everyone around you. Definitely. So, talking about all that, how do you recognize when you are seeking validation outside of yourself versus tuning into your true self?
It takes practice, that growth mindset, and that conscious, like constantly learning. It takes a lot of practice. I would say now, like as of this past year, maybe because of starting my business, it's so exposing and having to do so much inner work. And I've been doing therapy and coaching for years. Um, and I've been coaching people for a long time for free mostly. But um, I think it's that one when I mentioned should, like literally when I say should out loud or to myself, I do pause.
Hmm.
And sometimes I have almost like I don't know if people if I'm old school or not, but like pen to paper, just writing it out or like typing it out, just like going like nuts on the keyboard with it. That really makes me pause. And
Hmm.
then there's like and then the woo in us, it's like the feeling. It's usually like in my chest or my throat. It's like this heaviness, this like blockage. I'm like, oh, if I'm about to do something, I'm like this doesn't feel right. But it takes a lot of practice to like pause and like, especially in this go hustle culture, it's like to take that pause and feel that, sit with that discomfort, and what is this feeling, right? And I think for me, it's having that, being able to discern that. It's like, what is this feeling? Like, I'm not excited. So
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Is it truly something that's not aligned, that I don't want to do? And sometimes I try to think of like, I picture the outcome. I don't know, an easy one to think of is like, you know, um, you're getting invited to do like an event or something. It's like thinking of the outcome. Like, are you going to feel re-energized, refreshed, or are you going to feel like your energy's been drained and you could have been better off just sitting at home, chilling, or reading a book? So I think for me, it takes practice, but when you say should, and then the feeling, energy of feeling, and then pick the third one, like picture the outcome. I
Yeah.
would say that's kind of been my way of, and I'm really big on, I'm sure you've heard me say it tons lately. It's like, I always say, filter out the noise and tune into yourself. You got to get quiet. And for those who journal, like that's a really good way to just journal your thoughts out and
Mm-hmm.
see it, and then kind of review it. I think that helps. That's when I kind of see if I'm seeking external validation. And now I'm kind of taking a pause, like when I'm about to ask someone for advice or ask someone for something, I'll sit with it for a little bit first, and then like, what am I trying? What is the purpose of me asking this person? Am I just looking for a different perspective? Which right now often it is the case. I just
Mm-hmm.
want like a whole bunch of different perspectives to create a synergy. And because I've done this practice enough, that with all the different perspectives and insights, I feel like I can create a synergy and still discern what's mine and what's not mine, and
Mm-hmm.
make a decision. Most of the time, again, constant practice. But I think the old me was always asking just to then have external validation, whereas I need to be able to give myself that safety and that validation. How about you?
That's amazing. Yeah. Um, so many important pieces there. I love like the should. Uh, so many important pieces there. Yeah. Well, for me, reframing has been a big part of my healing. So when I say reframing, it's similar to that how you're saying, identify why you're saying should. So for me, reframing in the sense that should there be a thought that I have that's not exactly positive towards me or towards myself, and I'll take that thought and just reframe it. Part of that reframing, I will use the word and. So instead of saying, for example, uh, I would like to go on vacation, but I don't have the money, right? It's instead of like, it's just these, and these are practice ways how I like practice. It wasn't just this specific example, but then I would reframe it and say, well, I'd like to go on vacation and I need $3,000 to do it. So it's reframing it and teaching your brain to lean more towards the, okay, this is where we are and this is where we're going to be versus this is where we are. I don't think we're going to get there. So a lot of
That
reframing.
one.
Yeah, I've used reframing quite a bit. And I do that even when I speak with have conversations with others as well. It's and learning and understanding where they're coming from. It's just, kind of reframing in my mind. It's like, okay, taking this thought or this potential action and then reframing it in an upward motion versus oh, I don't know. And
Mm.
like you said, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of practice. So for me, it was definitely reframing. um and I feel like, and I think we're both alike in this way, where as you get older, you tend not to seek that validation from others anymore, right? Like, I'm trying to keep it PG, so I'm not going to swear, but
Yeah. I just swear in my head.
right. But you tend to, as you get older, you really don't give a crap about what other people think, because you've seen so much, and you haven't even seen everything in the world yet. But we've seen so much, and we've learned so much about ourselves that it's like all of that external noise. is helping to create this internal noise that's causing me the problem, not anyone else. So why am I doing that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a lot of practice and a lot of reframing and just a lot of saying, no, I don't accept that, or no, I'm not going to do that. And really, and I challenged myself quite a bit in a lot of the internal thoughts and programming that I had over the years, specifically, sorry, the last um, decade and a half, so to speak, since becoming a Reiki practitioner. And it's just sometimes you just have to say no, and that includes saying no to those thoughts that are infiltrating. It's like reframe. Okay, why is this thought coming in? Let's reframe it, and let's turn this into a positive. So a lot of where I turned that around was the reframing. Yeah.
That I love that one. The and I haven't done or heard of that one because, and it's like we see reframing, and that's why I was like refraining
Mhm.
from saying affirmations. But I think reframing is like another form of affirmations. It's
Yeah.
your focus then goes on that. You know what they say: where focus goes, energy flows. Right. So instead of saying, "But I don't have the money," it's and I'll get the money. So now you focus on that trajectory.
Yes.
And when you said that, I also thought of like yet. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not successful yet. You know,
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really
or and also instead of if, you say when. So, oh, if my business is success, I'm like, no, when my coaching practice is booming, then I'm going to do this and this. So, yeah, I
yeah.
love that. Thank you for that reminder. I like the ad. I haven't heard of that one. And so, like, I say this so that people listening can have all these different tools. If the yet doesn't work for you, then try the ad or try all of them. And yeah, what you're saying about, I think our next tomorrow we'll talk about boundaries, the
Yes.
art of saying no. I literally Googled how to say no before. And
Yeah.
that's like years ago when I started this whole like, yeah, the boundaries. And when, as you get
Yep.
older, just a no as a full sentence. I had to teach my partner this too. I was like, just don't make excuses. Don't make up lies or excuses.
Yeah.
Just no.
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 That's it.
And
Yep.
then I think I was telling a girlfriend, I was like, just say no. She's like, but why? I don't have plans. She didn't want to go do something with her in-laws. And I was like, your plans are to chill at home and protect your energy. That's your plan.
Yep.
It's a plan.
It
She's
is a
like,
plan. Yep.
yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be some lavish event that you're like having to bail to do something else. It's like, it's your life. If you choose to tell them, sure, but you don't need to. And there's more power to just say no instead of making up excuses.
Yep. And I feel like that's actually another link and I don't know if you feel this way, but for me personally as well, it's just from my past is that need to explain and define
People
everything
please.
we do, everywhere we go, what are we doing? Um, and that it can be overwhelming. It
Yeah, it's
can
like
be.
justifying, oh, I'm not a bad daughter. I'm not a bad daughter-in-law or
I'm,
sister or whatever. I'm not a bad whatever relation
yeah,
because I'm doing this, because I'm choosing myself and my
yeah,
mental wellness and my family.
yeah,
And I think that goes back to that attachment to our worth, right? Like, I'm a
yeah,
good daughter if I do this. I'm a good daughter-in-law if I do this. But
yeah.
it's our life. We gotta live.
Right.
Right? Be kind and respectful,
Yeah,
but it says more about the person who doesn't respect your boundary than it does about
yeah,
yourself, right? If
yeah.
you do respectfully.
Which is why we got to break down that people pleasing, and it just
Mhm.
snowballs from there. Yeah,
It's all a thing.
indeed. Um, I have one more question for you, and it kind of ties into the last question that we discussed. But what's one piece of wisdom that helps you to stay grounded in your truth when those external voices seem overwhelming? Because as much as we are healing and practicing and doing all of these things, sometimes we could be with a client, sometimes we could be kind of sitting in our moment before our client gets to us, and we hear those external voices. So what's one piece of wisdom that helps you to stay grounded, or one thing
Getting
that you do?
so many things, right? Because you have to have all these tools. One may work one day, one may not work the other day. The one that comes to mind I've been using less, it's literally getting quiet, right?
Mhm.
Like, or I turn on like relaxing music, and I hope, I don't know, for the meditators, I will meditate. And it's just short, like a minute, 5 minutes, whatever it is. And then whatever it is that's like on my mind, I try to think like, what am I trying to achieve? What am I trying to get out of this? Like trying to seek this external validation. What am I afraid of? Usually it's a fear of something. Like I'm afraid what it's going to say about me. I'm afraid what people will think. I'm afraid that I might fail. Again, reframe and redefine what that word means. But I think when I have that, whatever thought is that comes to mind, like I just try to literally like take lots of deep breaths, tune out everything else, listen to the quiet music, or be in silence if you prefer, and think about what it is you're trying to, your purpose or intention out of something what you're thinking about. And often it's something you're afraid of, that you're trying to, I'm afraid to make this decision, so I'm going to get someone else or other people to validate. So then it's not my, but yeah, that's been helpful for me. Like just having like literally getting quiet and meditating and trying to get clear on what it is that's I'm trying to achieve in my head by asking people or seeking external validation for. What is it I'm afraid of? What am I trying to achieve? That's been helpful to me. And I want to hear what your top technique is right now, and then I can speak to the worksheet and we'll share that with everyone.
Sounds good. Yeah. One of the things that I've started doing is asking whose voice is this? Because just got goosebumps about that too. Because if there's ever any doubt that comes in, it comes in kind of disguised as my voice. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I should be doing this. Should. And I, much like you, I do practice the art of quiet. I love silence so much. Oh my gosh. Like it helps you just to have that moment of peace. But I also have that moment of silence and ask, okay, whose voice is this? Really? Because this isn't me. This isn't mine. So who is this belonging to? And I go back and figure out, okay, where is this actually coming from? And then bring in the art of reframing. It's like, okay, well, this is the thought, but why am I having this thought versus this is the thought and I'm going to elevate out of this thought and reframe it into something else. So it's a lot of asking whose voice is this? Because that has helped me so much in letting go of a lot of those little things that nitpick at me as I'm achieving. And I think that's the first time I've actually said that out loud, that I'm achieving. But it's those little voices and those little things that can break that down and take that away from you. So now it's really something you can do. You can ask, well, whose voice is this really? Right?
Yeah.
So,
That makes you think of I don't know why I didn't say this really, like the inner critic, that self-doubt, that voice. I've done this exercise. I've done this just where I'm in the season of trying to befriend my inner critic. I name them Charlene, which is my full name, but it's like more stuffy and like formal. And I'm befriending them because the thing is, those self-doubting thoughts and those limiting beliefs, like you said, sometimes they're not even ours, but sometimes like, okay, what are you afraid of, Shirley? What are we trying to get to? Usually I'm just talking in my head. But I've actually seen this on like TikTok or somewhere. Like people actually will sit in two separate chairs and face each other, like they're in a critic. And then I'm not there yet. I'm not doing that. But in my head, like I made them. So I'm like, what are you afraid of? Because they're just trying to protect us. The self-doubt and the limiting beliefs are trying to protect us.
yeah.
What are you afraid of? Like, what are we trying to get out of this? It's okay. I got you. We're safe. Let's from that, the whose voice is this? There's one exercise, but another one also like, yeah, where does that belief or thought come from?
Yeah.
It's been passed down to us or not. And so then this is a perfect segue to the worksheet we can provide to everyone listening. We'll share a link. It's flipping your flops and then reclaiming your power. So it's like 3 columns, and you'll put down all your flops, like, I'm not smart. And then you'll flip it to like, actually, I can excel at things that I really am interested in, that I really care about. But if it's math, I don't care, like, and then from the third column is from. Like, where does that belief come from? You know, my
Mhm.
sisters are both accountants by trade, and they're all higher up now in their corporate positions, and they're all very good at math. I was told all my life that I suck at math. Actually, I
Mhm.
don't think I do now as an adult, because I'm like, I can actually do it. I just don't like it or care for it, and I don't naturally succeed at it, I guess.
Mhm.
Still at it, right? So it's like, where did that belief come from? Is that really mine? I don't actually think I'm dumb, but I was made to believe indirectly, directly over the time of as growing up that I'm not as smart, you know. Maybe I'm more creative, right? And so, yeah, this exercise, and I actually do this with all my clients as one of like our first exercises, and then we go back to revisit it. And it's so beautiful and empowering to see. Like, I had a client who's like, nope, that's not me. Nope, that's not me. And it's, yeah, so I think it's something good to have. That's why I made a worksheet so that people can have it and just revisit it too. You can easily just make 3 columns in a notebook yourself too.
Yeah.
Um, but that's so true, right? Reframing things and acknowledging where it's being, and that's the practice, being able to discern if it's yours or it came from somewhere else, which often is the case. Because
Yeah.
we're all born, like, think of little kids are so naive and innocent and sweet and confident, you know, like
Yeah.
they just fall and get back up, fall and get back up, and you just think
Yeah.
they're amazing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm smart. And
Yeah.
then somewhere along the line, the world breaks us. Or,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, like it layers up on us, right, as we grow, and just
know.
now we're at the point where we're just unlayering and unpacking. Yeah, that's
Thank
so
you,
amazing.
Astra.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shar. This was I always love having conversations with you. um, this one I felt I we both felt was really really important as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And in terms of the worksheet that you're talking about, where can where can our viewers find that?
Yeah, we'll provide a link in the captions. And then also, yeah, or DM one of us if you can't get a hold of it. But yeah, absolutely. We'll put a link in the captions or the
All
URL
right.
so you can type it up.
Absolutely. So tomorrow we are here for day 3, finals of the series, and we are going to get into identifying the ways generational trauma impacts mental and emotional health. And there's so many other things that we'll be discussing: how to incorporate radical self-care that really aligns with your true needs beyond the societal pressures that we have. We are, as Shar said, we'll be discussing boundaries and also practical steps to break free from these inherited cycles, so you can prioritize your wellness. So I'm excited for that. I'm so excited to be with Shar tomorrow again, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. PST and 9 p.m. EST. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you soon.